faithfully sharing insights by interpreting great books from around the world. Hello, this is Sally Book Talks. Today I'll be diving into the book A Brief History of Germs for you. Over the past 3 years, COVID-19's emergence has deeply shown us how infectious diseases threaten lives, health, and society as a whole. This has been a severe test for every person, every family, and every nation. But when we shift from the present to the long sweep of history, we see that infectious diseases have threaded through all of human civilization. From ancient scourges like plague, smallpox, cholera, to newer ones like SARS, Ebola, and COVID-19, humans have been in a constant battle against infectious diseases. So, what exactly are the pathogens behind these diseases? Where do they come from, and how do they spread and make us sick? How should we prevent and treat these infectious diseases? How should we coexist with these pathogens in the future? The answers to all these questions are in the book, A Brief History of Germs, that we're covering today. Just a quick note. The book's title says germs, but pathogens for common infections aren't just bacteria and viruses. So, in this book and our discussion, germs means disease-causing agents like bacteria, viruses, mycoplasma, and all other pathogens. The book's chief editor, John Wenheng, is director of infectious diseases at Huashan Hospital, Fudan University, head of China's National Center for Infectious Diseases, and leader of Shanghai's COVID-19 expert group, a top expert in infectious disease control. In this book, the author walks us through the features, spread, and prevention of 17 common infectious diseases, helping us learn more about germs, fight infections scientifically, and take charge of our own health. I'll break down the book's main content into 3 parts for you. Part 1 covers how germs were discovered and how humans can prevent and treat infections. Part 2 focuses on introducing specific diseases like plague and flu. What's the pathogen behind SARS? How they cause infectious diseases. In Part 3, we'll discuss the future of the human germ battle, how we should coexist with germs going forward. First, let's dive into Part 1, how germs were discovered. Well, the discovery of germs really has to start with historical infectious diseases. For humans, infectious diseases are arguably a bigger disaster than earthquakes, fires, floods, tsunamis, or even wars. Infectious diseases always sneak in quietly, yet they cause devastating casualties and can even change the course of human history. For example, in 430 BC, Athens, Greece, was almost wiped out by a plague. This city-state, hailed as the cradle of Western civilization, declined from then on, reshaping the Mediterranean world. In the 14th century, the Black Death, that's the plague, ravaged Europe, killing over 25 million people, a third of Europe's population then. In the 15th century, European colonizers brought smallpox to the Americas. Native Americans had no immunity, so their population plummeted from 20 to 30 million to just 1 million in a century. In the early 20th century, the Great Influenza outbreak infected 1 billion people worldwide and took 40 million lives. Similar examples are countless throughout history. So what's really behind all these infectious diseases? For thousands of years, humans have hunted for the causes. Some scientists vaguely thought it was some substance, while others linked spread to air, water, and patients' clothing. Take John Snow, a founder of modern epidemiology, who proposed cholera spread through contaminated water, but tech limits meant the true cause was invisible, intangible, and elusive. It wasn't until the 17th century when Dutch scientist Antony van Leeuwenhoek used his improved microscope to see tiny life forms, microorganisms, smaller than anything known. But back then, Leeuwenhoek didn't realize how these microbes related to human diseases. Over the next century, scientists discovered more microbes. Some single-celled ones with similar structures were called bacteria. In the 19th century, French microbiologist Louis Pasteur heated broth in a swan neck flask, killing the bacteria, then sealed it. The broth in this bottle stayed fresh for a long time, while the unheated control broth spoiled quickly. From this, Pasteur proposed bacteria cause material decay, then developed the germ theory of disease. Later, Pasteur collaborated with French physiologist Claude Bernard to prevent drink spoilage by using high heat to kill contaminants without altering taste. This is what we now call pasteurization. Building on this, German physician and bacteriologist Robert Koch discovered the tubercle bacillus causes tuberculosis. He then isolated Vibrio cholerae, identifying the culprit behind the deadly cholera outbreak. Meanwhile, Dutch botanist Martinus Beijerinck found tobacco mosaic disease, which yellows and kills leaves, was also infectious. But after filtering diseased leaf sap through bacteria-proof filters, the filtered liquid still infected healthy tobacco. He concluded the cause was a pathogen smaller than bacteria, naming it virus. But technology then couldn't visualize viruses. Entering the 20th century, electron microscopes, isotope tracing, and biochemistry rapidly advanced germ research, revealing pathogen structures. Scientists studied toxins released and human reactions to infections, clarifying disease mechanisms. Research showed germ-caused diseases share three key features: infection sources, transmission routes, and susceptible populations. First, every infection has a clear source. Sources are germ-carrying animals or infected humans. Second, transmission requires specific routes, like fleas carrying Yersinia pestis from rats to humans. TB patients spread tubercle bacillus through coughs or sneezes. Finally, while anyone can get infected, stronger immunity can eliminate germs before illness develops. We call this latter group susceptible populations for that infectious disease. Based on these characteristics, scientists proposed targeted measures: eliminate sources, cut transmission routes, and protect susceptible people. The source, pathogens, is the root cause. Eliminating them eradicates the disease at its core. So how do we eliminate them? Though invisible, germs have fixed hosts. For example, we can eliminate animal hosts like plague-carrying rats or germ-infested mosquitoes, or isolate infected people. But in reality, not every host can be eliminated or isolated. So what then? We focus on cutting transmission routes. For airborne germs, wear masks and keep distance. For waterborne germs, boil or disinfect water. For mosquito-borne, use nets, repellents, blocking routes prevents spread. For susceptible people, gaining protection before infection is ideal. Vaccines train immune systems to produce antibodies against specific germs. When germs invade, the primed immune system can destroy or weaken them. All right, we've covered germ discovery and standard prevention. Now let's examine plague, flu, and SARS, three familiar diseases, to see how humans detected and fought them. First, plague, a virulent disease caused by Yersinia pestis, highly contagious and deadly. Even today, plague remains China's top Class A infectious disease under prevention laws. Plague. Yersinia pestis jumps from rats to humans via flea bites. Victims develop high fever, swollen lymph nodes, and severe chest pain with coughing. As the disease progresses, patients develop sepsis and massive bleeding all over the body. Plague advances very fast, often killing within 3 days. Because corpses often turn purplish-black, it's also called the Black Death. In human history, there have been 3 major plague pandemics. The first pandemic in the 6th century AD. In Constantinople, capital of the Byzantine Empire, nearly 5,000 died daily, bodies piled up too fast to bury. Back then, Byzantine Emperor Justinian had conquered Italy and was sweeping North Africa. This sudden plague directly ended his Roman revival efforts. In the 14th century's second pandemic, people were helpless, letting it ravage Europe, killing over a third of the population. The pandemic's end was highly dramatic. In 1665, a great fire hit London, burning most buildings and killing countless residents. Even city rats weren't spared. But after the fire, the Black Death miraculously vanished. People mourned fire losses while celebrating the end of a 300-year plague. With limited tech, research couldn't explain why plague vanished with the fire, so it was credited to divine protection. By 1894, the Black Death challenged humanity again in Hong Kong, China. As mentioned in Part 1, 19th century microbiology advanced greatly thanks to Pasteur, Koch, and others. Swiss microbiologist Yersin came to Hong Kong, autopsied victims, found a common bacterium named Yersinia pestis, identifying plague's cause. Scientists also found outbreak hotspots shared poor sanitation with rampant fleas and rats. Yersin found the same germs on these rats. Thus, the Black Death's transmission route was revealed, and it was officially named plague. People actively launched rat extermination and improved sanitation, quickly controlling this pandemic. Though plague is now easier to identify and treat and unlikely to cause pandemics, its threat persists. For example, when visiting zoos or grasslands, remember to keep your distance from those popular marmots. Though they look cute and cuddly, they might carry deadly germs. Next, we'll cover the second infectious disease, influenza, caused by the influenza virus. Because of the name, many think influenza is just a cold, but it's actually a mistranslation in Chinese. The common cold from getting chilled is called cold in English, while influenza is influenza. The roots of influenza mean entering the body, epidemic, and disease respectively. So, its original meaning is an epidemic infectious disease. Historically, influenza has made humanity pay a heavy price multiple times. The most famous is the Great Influenza that started in 1918. 1988 was also the fourth year of World War I. Early that year, a strange infectious disease emerged among residents in Kansas, USA.
It spread rapidly, and some died shortly after getting sick. As local young men enlisted, the disease spread fast in U.S. military camps. Many soldiers got high fever, swollen throats, and body aches.
With U.S. troops moving in Europe, influenza spread to France, Italy, Germany, and soon Spain became a victim too. From kings to commoners, over 8 million were infected suddenly. Since the U.S., France, Germany were warring nations, news was censored, the flu outbreak wasn't reported, but Spain was neutral in WW1 with looser news controls. So, news of Spain's massive flu outbreak was widely publicized by media.
As a result, this disease, born in the U.S., was mistakenly called the Spanish flu.
That summer, the flu mutated fatally. The new variant had high lethality, killing in hours from onset.
This time, most infected were healthy young adults. Germany's flu devastated army retreated, surrendered, ending WMY. In this pandemic, 1 billion were infected worldwide, and 40 million lost their lives.
Of course, this is just a conservative estimate.
By scientists, it's thought that deaths could reach up to 100 million people.
The high death rate from flu is mainly because the influenza virus has a few deadly tricks.
First, it's highly mutable. The flu virus has 2 antigens. H has 16 subtypes, N has 9, and they can mix and match freely.
Familiar strains like H1N1 and H7N9 are well-known subtypes. Once the flu virus mutates, our immune system can't recognize it anymore. Existing antibodies become useless. These viruses can cause a small outbreak in 2 to 3 years, and in a decade or so, they transform into new strains, sparking a major pandemic. The second deadly trick is that, besides its own toxicity, it can trigger an overactive immune response in humans. Simply put, the immune system goes overboard while fighting the virus. 10. It may destroy the virus, but other systems like the heart, kidneys, and lungs get badly damaged, called a cytokine storm. These injuries cause long-term issues, and some die from their own immune system. If weaker people show more obvious viral symptoms, stronger individuals often suffer greater damage from the cytokine storm. This explains why young adults had high death rates during the second wave of the 1918 flu. The flu virus's final deadly trick is it calls in its bad friends to help out. Many with mild flu feel fine after 3 or 4 days, think they're cured, and start showering, exercising, or doing intense work. However, the body's damage from the virus isn't fully healed yet, and the immune system is still very fragile.
If you get chilled, fatigued, or exposed to other germs, then it's easy to cause an infection.
What follows are often complications like pneumonia, myocarditis, or meningitis.
These acute infections are often deadlier than the flu itself. The flu is powerful and highly contagious.
Yet, sadly, no specific cure has been found so far, so prevention remains the most effective strategy against flu.
For kids, the elderly, and folks with chronic illnesses, since flu's common in winter and spring, getting a flu shot in September or October each year is the most effective prevention.
Also, good living and hygiene habits are solid weapons against the flu. For example, eat a balanced diet, boost nutrition, and exercise regularly. During peak flu season, wear masks, wash hands often, and avoid crowded spots. If you catch the flu, self-isolate, see a doctor fast, and don't spread it to others. Hearing about flu's traits and prevention methods, don't you find a lot of it super familiar? Yup, flu has tons in common with the third germ we'll cover, coronaviruses and their diseases. Coronaviruses are a type of respiratory virus named for that crown-like structure on their genome. Coronaviruses first became famous because of the atypical pneumonia outbreak in late 2002. In November 2002, a highly deadly fever disease with unknown cause suddenly popped up in Guangdong Province, China.
In just 5 months, it spread to 28 countries and regions worldwide, infecting over 8,000 people and killing 800.
Since the pathogen wasn't pinned down at first, and its symptoms were like pneumonia, China called it atypical pneumonia, or SARS for short. Through global teamwork by medical experts, in March 2003, the WHO officially named it Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome. Its English abbreviation is SARS, and the germ causing it is a new coronavirus, called the SARS virus. SARS spreads mainly through droplets and contact, with an incubation period of 2 to 14 days. After getting sick, patients have chills, high fever, cough, headache, fatigue, and breathing trouble. Severe cases can die from respiratory failure. Before locking down the pathogen, people underestimated SARS's power and spread, with poor protection, so early contacts got infected fast, leading to super spreaders infecting 20 to 30 people and many healthcare workers dying on duty. With little firsthand scientific knowledge and blocked public info channels, fueled by rumors, public panic grew.
Claims like fumigating with white vinegar prevents SARS and banlangen root prevents SARS spread like wildfire, sparking frenzied buying of banlangen and vinegar. Some even overdosed on random meds out of fear, paying with their lives. This panic proved even scarier than the SARS virus itself.
Thankfully, discovering the SARS virus became the turning point. Countries quickly took targeted actions, isolating patients and close contacts, urging masks and social distancing. And the fierce outbreak was rapidly contained. By July 2003, no new SARS cases appeared globally. So where did SARS come from? Early patients mostly had wildlife exposure, animal traders, drivers, restaurant staff. Plus, SARS virus was found in civets at Guangdong's wildlife markets, making civets the infamous source. But later research showed no SARS in civets elsewhere. Lab-infected civets didn't get sick either. Thus, civets were cleared of suspicion. After 13 relentless years, Chinese scientists pinpointed bats as the true culprit. Bats carry many coronaviruses. By chance, several recombined, mutated, and jumped to humans, triggering SARS. Though SARS ended, coronaviruses still lurk among us. In 2012, a SARS-like disease emerged in the Middle East, but SARS tests were negative. It was a new coronavirus, MERS, Middle East Respiratory Syndrome. By 2012, it hit 24 countries, infecting 1,139 and killing 431. MERS entered China but didn't spread widely there.
This credits China's massive post-SARS efforts to block imported infections.
Yet, since late 2019, the novel coronavirus pandemic became the latest, toughest test from this viral family. Similar to influenza, given the lack of effective drugs against coronaviruses, getting qualified and effective vaccines remains the best way to reduce infection risk, severe cases, and death rates. Of course, due to coronavirus's high transmissibility, protective measures like wearing masks, frequent hand washing, disinfection, Social distancing and self-isolation when sick are still necessary, even after vaccination. So, the plague, influenza, and SARS we covered earlier are just a small part of diseases caused by germs. Besides these, there are others like AIDS, Ebola, hepatitis, tetanus, rabies, and so on. So, what's the outlook for humans and these infectious diseases? How should humans coexist with germs in the future? This is the third part of our topic today. For survival, humans have long battled germs and infectious diseases, with the initial goal being to eradicate them and eliminate their threat to humanity. So, how to eliminate the threat of germs? There are many methods, like vaccines mentioned before, which are a solid shield for protecting human health. Additionally, antibiotics are the sharp sword humans wield against germs.
Of course, antibiotics mainly target bacteria, since for viruses, even today, effective drugs are scarce.
The history of humans inventing antibiotics is less than 100 years. In 1928, British medical scientist Alexander Fleming found that his petri dish culturing Staphylococcus aureus was contaminated by mold.
Before discarding the dish, he accidentally noticed the Staphylococcus aureus around the mold had died, which thrilled him.
It's because Staphylococcus aureus was common in infections from injuries or surgeries, and people were helpless against it back then. Many died as a result. After years of research, Fleming extracted the famous penicillin from this mold, saving countless lives. Penicillin, along with radar and the atomic bomb, is hailed as one of the three great inventions of World War II. With penicillin's discovery, human research and discovery of antibiotics entered a fast track. In 1939, German scientists invented sulfa drugs. In 1943, American scientists extracted streptomycin. In 1945, Italian scientists artificially synthesized cephalosporin drugs. After this, the variety of antibiotics increased rapidly, and they entered a booming phase of industrial production. Well, thanks to antibiotics, many once fatal diseases got treated effectively, and humans once saw hope of defeating germs. But unfortunately, in recent years, people found more germs developing antibiotic resistance. Drugs that used to cure instantly now work less and less. In 2010, a patient in Belgium had a superbug resistant to almost all antibiotics worldwide. Despite doctors' efforts, they watched helplessly as the patient died from septic shock. Why do germs develop resistance or even become superbugs? The answer is four words: survival of the fittest. Humans massively used antibiotics, pushing germs to the brink of extinction. But in the huge germ family, some naturally gifted germs have genes that resist antibiotics a bit. These resistant germs survive in humans, multiply, and share their genes. After round of this, germs' resistance gets stronger and stronger. So, what was once a one-sided fight turned into a tug-of-war between humans and germs. Over the last 30 years, human research into new antibiotics hit a bottleneck. And even if new drugs are developed, germs can eventually become resistant to them, given enough time. But the author believes this doesn't mean we should wave the white flag and surrender to germs. And because between wiping out germs and being wiped out by them, humans have a third option: coexisting with germs. We know microorganisms appeared on Earth way before humans. Their numbers and abilities are beyond imagination, and they've always shaped human survival, becoming an inseparable part of society. And the fact, despite rapid vaccine and antibiotic development, humans once felt confident they could control bacteria and viruses and eradicate infectious diseases. But wave after wave of new diseases, over a century, made people realize germs can't be fully eliminated. Since germs can't be wiped out, how do we coexist with them? First, we must always approach germs with a scientific and cautious attitude, fully recognizing their traits, and bravely admit we can't quickly defeat them or need to surrender pessimistically. And we must coexist with them long-term and stay vigilant against any attacks they launch at any moment. Moreover, though every fight against epidemics is inevitably tough, we gotta muster courage, stay confident, face unknown dangers, and find new ways, like developing new vaccines and drugs, or adopting better prevention measures, and so on. For example, through smallpox vaccination, humanity has totally wiped out smallpox. And with BCG vaccine and streptomycin working together, tuberculosis, once a deadly disease, ain't scary anymore. But indeed, humans have wiped out some germs relying on their smarts and hardcore medical tech. But given the endless new types and numbers of germs, creating a totally harmless environment is almost impossible. If we call humans and germs collectively us, then our future ain't about who lasts longest. It's destined to be mutual companionship forever.
After hearing today's talk, do you have any new thoughts about infectious diseases?
Feel free to leave comments and chat in the comments section. All right, that's all for a brief history of germs. Reading notes are below the audio. See you next time.
Hello, Sally Book Talks listeners. I'm Jo Chun-Yi, an editor from Shanghai Educational Publishing House, and I want to recommend the book A Brief History of Germs to you.
When you think of disasters, what pops into your mind first? Floods, forest fires, earthquakes, tsunamis, or wars and big explosions. In our minds, every disaster seems to come with its own grand background music. But there's one disaster that always sneaks in quietly, yet causes the biggest losses in human history: infectious diseases. For thousands of years, the battle between humans and infectious diseases has never stopped. Looking through global historical records, descriptions of infectious diseases are always filled with fear and sadness. Why do people turn pale at the mention? What impact have infectious diseases really had on human society? What causes these diseases, and how do they make people sick? As a hardcore doctor, Professor Zhang Wenheng's first popular science book for young readers, A Brief History of Germs, gives clear, easy-to-understand answers to these questions. And Smiles, this book introduces the discovery history of viruses and bacteria from a historical and global view, covers major pandemics' impact on society, traces vaccine and antibiotic development, and uses stories and illustrations to detail the origins, symptoms, spread, and prevention of 17 common infectious diseases. The book also covers scientific spirit and stories of scientists, showcasing humanity's struggles against infectious diseases to praise our quest for knowledge and build youth trust in scientific thinking and methods. Since its 2020 publication, A Brief History of Germs has gained market recognition and teen popularity, winning the inaugural Tongyu China Original Children's Book Award. In 2022, it received the special award at the 8th Shanghai Good Children's Book Event and was listed among China Education News 2020 Top 100 Teacher Favorite Books. Selected for the 2021 Rural Libraries Key Publications and National Parent-Child Read Classics Reading List, it's published in English, Arabic, and Uyghur in Xinjiang. The book was created to address readers, especially teens, need for medical knowledge and compassionate science education during the COVID-19 pandemic. There's nothing new under the sun. History and present often show striking similarities. Back in February 2020, Professor Zhang Wenheng urged us to study how historical pandemics unfolded, step by step. Understanding history through reading helps you see your current position clearly. Knowledge dispels fear. COVID-19 has impacted daily work, studies, and mental states. Reviewing humanity's battle against infectious diseases helps us learn from experience to better handle future outbreaks, while understanding pandemics' societal and personal impacts. Reposition yourself away from online restlessness, panic, and extreme emotions. Finally, I'll quote Dr. Zhang Wenheng. When stargazing on summer nights, leaning by winter fires, breathing forest air, or exploring ocean depths, know that viruses and bacteria are always sharing these moments with you.